My name is Erica. I am 33 years old, and on the night my father accused me of being selfish compared to my sister, I finally told the truth, the kind that left the entire table in silence. The dining room glowed with the soft yellow of a chandelier, casting halos on the polished table where roast chicken and bowls of mashed potatoes steamed. Family dinners were supposed to feel warm like home. Instead, they always felt like a trial where I was the defendant and my sister, Claire, was the star witness. Dad had poured himself a glass of wine, his eyes sharp, his voice louder than usual. "You're selfish, Erica," he barked, stabbing a fork toward me. "Not like your sister. She's better than you in every way." My breath caught in my chest. Claire looked down at her plate, her cheeks flushed, but she didn't protest. She never did. Mom sighed, reaching for the rolls, pretending she hadn't heard. That was her way, ignoring the storm until it passed. Me. For once, I didn't shrink into silence. I smiled. Slow. Deliberate. "Good," I said, my voice cutting through the clatter of silverware. "Then I'm done paying her rent." The room fell silent. Utterly still, like the air had been sucked out. Dad's fork hovered midair. Mom's hand froze on the breadbasket. Claire's face drained of color. Because they all knew exactly what I meant. If you're watching this, drop a comment, hit like and subscribe. Because this was the moment I stopped letting my family use me, and started showing them the cost of betrayal. The silence stretched on, broken only by the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the corner. I could feel the weight of their stares pressing into me, but I didn't flinch. Dad slammed his fork down. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" I leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding but my voice calm. "It means I've been carrying Claire for years, paying her rent, covering her bills, cleaning up her messes, while you call me selfish. If that's your definition of selfish, then fine. I'm done." Claire's lips parted, but no words came. She had always been the golden child, the one Dad defended no matter what. But tonight, even she couldn't hide behind his shield. A memory flashed across my mind. Claire at 19, sobbing on the phone because she couldn't make rent for her first apartment. I had been 24, juggling 2 jobs, my own bills barely covered. But I wired her the money anyway. I could still smell the burnt coffee in the break room where I made the transfer, exhausted and broke, whispering to myself that family came first. That whisper had followed me for years. Tonight it finally went silent. Mom finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Erica, honey, maybe this isn't the time." I cut her off, my smile bitter. "The time? How many dinners have we had where Dad's praised Claire and trashed me in the same breath? How many times have I swallowed it just to keep the peace?" Dad's face reddened, his voice booming. "You're ungrateful. We raised you better than this." The words cracked something inside me. I remembered nights of studying under a single lamp, working shifts while Claire went to parties, and still Dad saying, "Why can't you be more like her?" Tonight I wasn't swallowing it anymore. I leaned forward, my voice sharp as glass. "You raised me to sacrifice. To give. To be the safety net no one ever thanked. But I've woken up, Dad. And if you think I'm selfish now, you haven't seen anything yet." The table stayed frozen, every eye on me. And for the first time I felt free. Dad's face burned red, his jaw tight, his hand gripping the edge of the table like he could crush it. "You've lost your mind, Erica," he snapped. "Family helps each other. That's how it works." I let out a short laugh, bitter and sharp. "Funny you should say that, Dad. Because when has anyone here ever helped me?" The silence that followed wasn't just awkward, it was guilty. Claire shifted in her chair, eyes downcast, her fork tracing circles in her mashed potatoes. "Erica," she whispered, "please don't do this now." Her voice dragged me back years, to a night in college when she called me crying at midnight. "I'll get evicted if I don't pay rent by tomorrow." I was 20, broke, but I pulled out my savings anyway. I could still smell the stale ramen noodles I lived on for weeks afterward. And yet here she was, silent while Dad painted me as selfish. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "No, Claire. We're doing this now. Because I'm done letting all of you sit in judgment while I bankroll your lives." Mom cleared her throat, her voice tentative. "Sweetheart, you know your sister struggles. She's just not as strong as you." Her words stung more than Dad's yelling. I remembered being 12, carrying laundry baskets twice my size while Claire lounged on the couch. Mom had patted my head and said, "You're strong, Erica. Claire isn't like you." It had sounded like praise then. Now I realized it was permission, for Claire to take and for me to carry. I clenched my fists. Being strong doesn't mean being used. It doesn't mean you get to pile everything on me and call it love. Dad's fist slammed onto the table, rattling the plates. Don't twist this. You've always had more. A better job, a nicer apartment, more stability. You owe this family. The word "owe" hit me like a knife. Ryan's voice, steady and kind years ago, echoed in my head. You don't owe anyone your peace, Erica. Not even family. Especially not family who bleed you dry. I had ignored his warning. Tonight it rang louder than ever. I leaned forward, meeting Dad's glare head-on. I don't owe you. I don't owe Claire. And I don't owe Mom's excuses. I've been carrying everyone, and all I get in return is being called selfish. Claire finally snapped, her voice sharp, trembling. Do you think I like asking for help? Do you think I want to be this way? Her words cracked something inside me, not sympathy but a memory. The day she totaled her car and called me before she called Dad. I paid for her repairs while she bought herself designer shoes 2 weeks later. She hadn't wanted help. She had wanted freedom without responsibility. I shook my head slowly. Then stop asking. Because I'm done. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Erica, don't say that. We're family. We need each other. But her voice wavered and even she seemed unsure. I pushed my chair back, the screech of wood on tile slicing the silence. I stood tall, my pulse steady, my voice cold. You need me. But I don't need this anymore. The room was frozen. Dad glaring, Mom trembling, Claire pale as paper. I picked up my bag, slung it over my shoulder and walked toward the door. Every step felt like lifting years of weight off my back. But just before I reached the threshold, I turned back, my eyes locked on Dad's. You called me selfish, I said evenly. Good. Because selfish means I finally chose myself. And with that, I walked out, leaving the smell of roasted chicken and the heavy silence of a broken family behind me. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. They would come for me. And I was ready. The night air outside stung against my cheeks as I left my parents' house. But the sting felt cleaner than the suffocating heat of that dining room. My hands trembled as I gripped the steering wheel, but beneath the tremor, something new pulsed, relief. For the first time in my life, I had walked away without apologizing. When I got home, the apartment felt strangely quiet. I set down my bag and collapsed onto the couch, replaying Dad's voice in my head. You're selfish. Claire is better than you. The words should have broken me. But instead they hardened into resolve. A memory rose uninvited. Me at 18, working double shifts at a diner to help cover Claire's college tuition shortfall. The smell of greasy fries clung to my uniform, my feet ached. But when I handed Mom the envelope of cash, she smiled and said, See, Erica? You're a good sister. Back then I thought sacrifice earned love. Tonight I knew better. My phone buzzed. Claire. For a moment I considered ignoring it. But some part of me needed to hear what excuse she would give. I answered. What do you want, Claire? Her voice was quiet, shaky. Erica. I didn't mean for it to go that far. Dad he gets worked up. Don't hold it against him. I closed my eyes, pinching the bridge of my nose. This isn't just about tonight. This is about years, Claire. Years of me cleaning up your messes, paying your rent, covering your bills while Dad sings your praises and calls me selfish. She went silent. Then softly, I never asked you to. The words made my chest tighten, hot with rage. Yes, you did. Every time you called me crying, every time you let me bail you out. You asked. And I said yes. But not anymore. Her breath hitched like she wanted to argue but didn't know how. Good night, Claire, I said flatly and ended the call. The following morning, Dad showed up at my apartment. His knock was loud, angry. I opened the door but didn't step aside. What do you want? His eyes blazed. You embarrassed this family last night. You think you're better than us now? Walking out like some spoiled child. I laughed bitterly. Better? Odette. Just done. He jabbed a finger toward me. You think cutting Claire off makes you strong? You're nothing without family. One day you'll come crawling back. A memory hit me, being 15, overhearing Dad tell a neighbor, Claire will do great things. Erica? She's dependable. Not brilliant. Not gifted. Just dependable, like a mule you could load until it broke. I straightened my spine. If being nothing without you means finally being free, then I'll take it. His face twisted, fury and disbelief colliding. For the first time, he didn't have control of the conversation. You'll regret this, he spat. I shook my head. No, Dad. I regret every year I let you convince me love meant servitude. I regret every dollar I spent buying a place in this family. That regret ends today. I closed the door before he could answer, the sound of it shutting echoing like finality. Inside, I leaned against the door, my body trembling. Tears threatened, but I blinked them back. Because tonight wasn't about breaking down. It was about standing tall. And for the first time in my life, Dad's voice didn't drown mine out. But even as I stood there, heart pounding, I knew this was only the beginning. Dad wouldn't let go quietly. And neither would Claire. The following week unfolded like a storm I had predicted but never fully braced for. My phone buzzed with texts and voicemails, most of them from Mom, her tone wavering between pleading and scolding. Erica, please call back. You don't understand what you're doing to this family. What I was doing to the family. As if their years of taking hadn't already fractured me. At work, I tried to focus, but the words from Dad's outburst lingered like a bruise. You're selfish. Claire is better than you. They rang in my ears during meetings, clung to me even as I stared at spreadsheets. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened the folders I'd kept hidden on my laptop. Bank transfers, rent receipts, even screenshots of Claire's texts. Evidence of every time I had been their safety net. The messages read like a diary of betrayal. Erica, I'm short this month, please, I'll pay you back. My landlord's threatening me. Can you send me $500 today? Please don't tell Dad, he'll be mad. Just help me this once. I traced the dates with my finger, realizing how many birthdays, vacations and opportunities one had sacrificed to keep her afloat. My chest tightened with another memory. Me at 27 canceling a trip to California with friends because Claire couldn't make rent. I had told myself it was fine, that family came first. But all it bought me was another round of Dad's lectures about how I should be more like Claire. I sipped my wine, bitterness coating my tongue. Not anymore, I whispered. The next day, Claire showed up at my apartment. She looked smaller than usual, her makeup smudged, her hair pulled back messily. Erica, please, she said the moment I opened the door. Dad's furious. Mom's crying. You've torn this family apart. I crossed my arms. No, Claire. I just stopped holding it together for you. Her lip quivered. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't realize how much you've done. For a moment I almost softened. But then I remembered the way she sat in silence when Dad called me selfish, the way she let his words sink claws into me while she stayed quiet. You realized, I said coldly. You just didn't care. She stepped closer, her voice rising. Fine. You want me to say it? Yes, I needed your help. Yes, I took advantage. But you could afford it. You've always been stronger than me, Erica. You were built for responsibility. I wasn't. The admission hit me harder than I expected. Not because it was new, but because it confirmed what I had always suspected. I was the family's workhorse and they knew it. My voice shook, but it was steady with resolve. Then learn to carry yourself, Claire. Because I'm not carrying you anymore. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't flinch. That night, I received another voicemail from Dad, his voice harsh, his words deliberate. If you cut your sister off, don't bother coming back here. You're no daughter of mine. The words stung, but instead of breaking me, they solidified my choice. I closed my laptop, switched off my phone, and stood at the window, the city lights glowing against the dark sky. For once, I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. But peace doesn't last forever. And deep inside, I knew Diane wasn't the only mother-in-law capable of cruelty. Because my father was about to show me just how far he'd go to punish me for saying no. The next blow came faster than I expected. On Friday evening, I came home from work to find an envelope shoved under my door. My father's handwriting stared back at me in bold, angry strokes. I tore it open, my hands trembling. Inside was a typed letter, cold and formal. Effective immediately, you are no longer welcome at family gatherings. Your disrespect and selfishness have made it impossible for this family to function. Until you apologize to your sister and resume supporting her as before, consider yourself estranged. No signature. Just my father's name typed at the bottom like a decree. For a long moment I just stood there, the letter dangling from my fingers. I should have cried. I should have felt crushed. Instead I laughed. A sharp, bitter laugh that echoed in my empty apartment. Estranged? I had already been estranged for years. I just hadn't admitted it. That night I pulled out a shoebox I'd kept buried in my closet. Inside were years' worth of receipts, notes, even small keepsakes tied to Claire's emergencies. Rent stubs with my name on them, utility bills I had paid, even an old pawn slip for jewelry I'd sold to cover her debts. I sat cross-legged on the floor, the shoebox open, and the memories came crashing down. Me at 21, pawning my grandmother's necklace to help Claire cover her tuition shortfall. The smell of metal and dust in the pawn shop, the shame burning my cheeks as I handed it over. Me at 29, wiring money in secret so Claire wouldn't face eviction, only to see her posting vacation pictures in Miami 2 weeks later. And through it all, Dad's voice, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" I gathered every piece of evidence into a folder. My hands shook, not from doubt but from clarity. They wanted me silent. They wanted me broken. But I wasn't going to be either. The next day I posted a message on my private social media, just to close friends and extended relatives. For years I've been told I'm selfish. The truth is I've been paying my sister's rent, bills and debts for over a decade. Last week my father told me I'm no daughter of his. So here it is, the truth they won't say out loud. Decide for yourself who's selfish. I attached screenshots of receipts, transfers and even a blurred photo of Dad's letter. Within hours the comments flooded in. Sympathy. Anger directed not at me but at them. For the first time the narrative wasn't theirs to control. That evening Mom called. Her voice was trembling, desperate. "Erica, why did you post that? You've humiliated us. Everyone's talking." I swallowed hard. "No, Mom. Diane humiliated me. Claire took from me. Dad condemned me. All I did was tell the truth." She tried again, her voice breaking. "Please just take it down. Think about your sister, she's fragile." I closed my eyes, remembering every time she had said those words growing up. Claire's fragile. Claire's sensitive. Claire needs you. I opened my eyes, my voice firm. Then maybe it's time she learns to be strong. And I hung up. That night, I sat by the window with a cup of tea watching the city lights shimmer. For the first time I didn't feel like the shadow behind Claire. I felt like myself, finally unchained. But in the pit of my stomach I knew the silence from Dad wouldn't last. Because men like him never surrendered control quietly. And his next move was coming. The silence broke 3 days later. I woke to a knock on my apartment door, not frantic but deliberate. When I opened it, my father stood there in his pressed shirt and stern face, as if he'd come straight from lecturing the world. "Erica," he said flatly, "we need to talk." I crossed my arms. "I thought I wasn't your daughter anymore." His eyes narrowed, but he pushed past me into the apartment anyway, his cologne sharp and familiar. For a moment I was 16 again, standing in the living room while he towered over me, telling me how Claire was better, how I needed to grow up. But I wasn't 16 anymore. He sat at the table, pulling a folded paper from his pocket. "This," he slapped it down, "is a mess. Your post embarrassed us. Do you know how many calls I've gotten? You've dragged this family's name through the mud." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "I didn't drag it. I revealed it. There's a difference." His voice sharpened. "Delete it. Apologize to your sister. Resume the support. Do it now and maybe we can fix this." I laughed, a bitter, disbelieving sound. "Fix it? Dad, the only thing broken here is the illusion you've built. That Claire is perfect, that I'm selfish, that family means sacrifice at my expense. I won't glue your lies back together." His face reddened, his jaw tightening. "If you walk away from this family, don't expect us to be there when you fall. You'll regret it." The words struck me like a memory. Me at 24, crying in my car after a 12-hour shift, calling Dad for comfort. His only words, "You'll be fine. Be more like your sister. She doesn't complain." Back then it had crushed me. Now it steeled me. I met his gaze head on. "You're right, Dad. I will be fine. Because I finally learned the truth. Family isn't who drains you. It's who stands beside you. And you've never stood beside me." He slammed his palm against the table, the sound echoing through my apartment. "Ungrateful," he spat. Everything we gave you, and this is how you repay us? I walked to the door and pulled it open. Everything you gave me, Dad, came with strings tied to Claire. I'm cutting them now. If that makes me ungrateful, so be it. For the first time in my life he had no words. Just a glare, sharp and hollow, before he stormed past me and into the hall. The door shut behind him, the echo final, the weight lifting. That night I sat at my desk, laptop open, camera on. My voice was steady as I spoke. They called me selfish. They said I wasn't like my sister. They thought guilt and silence would keep me in line. But I've learned something. Sometimes being selfish just means choosing yourself. I paused, letting the words sink in. If you've ever been told you owe your family your peace, your money, your life, remember this: you don't. You only owe yourself the chance to live free. I smiled faintly, closing the laptop. A week later, I heard through relatives that Claire had finally gotten a job, her first real one in years. Without my money to catch her, she'd been forced to stand. For the first time, she was facing the world on her own terms. Dad? His silence was louder than his yelling ever was. I sat on my balcony that night, city lights flickering below, the cool breeze brushing my face. For the first time in decades, I wasn't the mule, the scapegoat, the selfish one. I was just me. Free, unburdened, and whole. Selfish was my freedom all along.